Hey guys, welcome back to More English with Dry. Today I'm going to take you on our first look at Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire. Now we're going to look specifically at Blanche DuBois. This video should be helpful for you if either you are studying this at Key Stage 3 or if maybe you are taking a look at it at A level. We're going to focus on her character, look at all the things that take place in the play, specifically the things that take place to her, a bit of an examination of her past and her mental state, and then a look at how the ending of the play influences her. So the first thing that's key to talk about is her relationship with her sister Stella. Of course, Blanche DuBois, at the beginning of the play, comes to New Orleans for the first time to stay with her sister Stella. Now, Stella has married a man, Stanley, and Blanche is going to be staying with them. However, initially, the first thing we discover is that Blanche is horrendously unhappy with what she finds, and specifically in terms of where she is staying. Blanche's reunion with Stella seeks to highlight their many differences. While Stella has adapted to the modern world in which their once aristocratic way of life has faded and become an anachronism, Blanche remains tied to their past, which is anchored in Belle, Reve, itself a symbol of a lost America. Stella and Blanche's family are one of the old southern aristocratic ones, one that has unfortunately become lost due to financial mismanagement, due to the world moving past them. Now Stella has accepted this and moved on, Blanche unfortunately has not. This disconnect is manifested through Blanche's repeated snobbery, as she both covertly and overtly belittles Stella's chosen lifestyle. She fails to see the necessity for this pragmatism that her sister has embraced, rather holding on to the fancy of her own home and her old way of life. It serves to alienate her from Stella, driving a wedge between them and sending the latter even further into the controlling and abusive grasp of Stanley. As we see the two talk with each other, we see that Blanche is more and more dissatisfied with the living conditions Stella finds herself in. She seems to argue that Stella has forgotten their roots. Stella's argument, of course, is that she has had to for the good of her financial state and for the good of her success. Blanche consistently risks distancing herself from Stella thanks to her acrimonious comments over who's to blame for the demise of their family home. The loss of Belle Reve, a sort of southern Gothic mansion, a consequence of financial mismanagement and extreme debt, is a significant factor in Blanche's removal to New Orleans. It also functioned as the bedrock of Blanche's identity and legitimised all of the opinions she has about herself. Without it, she experiences an existential crisis that becomes a theme of the play. Stella's life has become the polar opposite of Blanche's desired mode of being out of necessity. She has had to find some means of paying for or earning her existence. In doing so, she has become tied to Stanley, a rough yet undeniably alpha male who controls every aspect of her life. A large part of Blanche's judgment of Stella is jealousy over the apparent stability she is offered by her marriage, even if Blanche is put off by Stanley's low background. Now, Blanche is somewhat a character who is singularly insecure about nearly every element of her life. If we consider the repeated desire for her to have her appearance complimented or remarked upon by her sister, we will see this specifically. Blanche's trademark vanity is one of the first attributes the audience is made aware of, with Williams's character's summary insisting upon someone who obsesses over every aspect of how she looks to others. Blanche derives all of her self-worth from the physical impression she makes upon those she meets, especially men, and she carefully tries to cultivate the illusion of youth and beauty to attract them to her. Blanche's hunger for affirmation over her looks conveys the extreme anxiety that they cause her. Her understanding of the world requires her to be a beautiful prize to be won by a fairy tale prince. This is largely why she appears utterly incongruous in the sweaty realism of New Orleans. Blanche shrinks from any and all lights that could reveal the truth of her appearance. However, this desire to escape exposure extends to all aspects of the carefully cultivated fantasy that she has concocted to detract from the grim realities of her failing life. Now, if we look at the idea of Belle Reve and what it serves as in the play, we will see that it functions beyond simply a house of bricks and mortar. Stanley is initially very jealous and believes he has been swindled specifically under the Napoleonic Code, and Blanche is at pains to explain, or rather to try and obfuscate, why exactly the home is no longer theirs. It functions almost as the green light does in Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby. It is a symbol that all that Blanche has lost, a dream that she yearns to recapture and yet never will. In many ways, it is the failing and receding American dream. The facade of wealth and high breeding she propagates is based on her lineage. However, in the same way that Belle Reve is no longer theirs, neither is the lifestyle associated with it. America had moved on at this time, and that is something that Blanche is singularly unable to deal with. She engages in a wistful roleplay of aristocratic existence, and all of the trappings of this supposedly superior upbringing are revealed at various points to be exaggerated, falsified, or just pure fiction. Blanche also suffered a failed marriage when she was a teenage girl. Someone who was very innocent but desirable got married at a young age to a very, very innocent and loving young man. Her idealised and totally unrealistic view of the world ultimately led to the first of many traumas that would shape all of her future relationships with men. The helpless love she fell into as a teenage girl was brutally wrecked by the discovery that her young husband was in fact a closet homosexual. The affair she involuntarily witnessed between him and an older man, and her inability to accept it, caused Alan's eventual suicide. The abrupt and tragic ending to this marriage emotionally stunts Blanche by allowing her to only seek solace in men that remind her of Alan. Despite her raging, the men or boys that she chases do not, and this ultimately results in her dismissal as a schoolteacher for an inappropriate relationship. It is further exemplified in the bizarre scene involving the young man who calls at her door. Despite this, Blanche chases the character of Mitch, one of Stanley's close friends that he works with and served in the armed forces with. Mitch is a bit of a patsy of a man in a lot of ways, someone who's very caring towards his sick mother, but somebody who is naive and gullible and believes a lot of the lies that she tells him. Blanche's depression at her own existence leads to a stream of brief and meaningless affairs, all of which serve to try and fill the void left by the failure of her marriage. As her looks begin to fade, she also finds that sexual interactions with random men help gratify her vanity. This is why she immediately flirts with both Stanley and Mitch. Ironically, Stanley recognises this sexuality in her, and ultimately it feeds into his desire to dominate her physically. However, clearly for Blanche, the intimacies with strangers is less about sexual fulfillment and more about searching desperately for the protection that a relationship promises. This causes her to latch on to Mitch, seeing him as superior to the other possible suitors at the poker party, perhaps due to his devotion to his mother. It is precisely this potential for stability that makes Mitch's eventual rejection of her upon learning the true nature of her troubled past such a turning point, and undoubtedly triggers the mental collapse she undergoes following Stanley's rape of her. Stanley Kowalski is one of theatre's greatest ever characters, or certainly one of its greatest ever misogynists and abusers. He is a man who is all at once both animalistic, alluring, and disgusting. His entire being is defined by the power dynamics of relationships. As a man, he seeks to dominate those around him, specifically women who he regards as naturally inferior. One of his greatest vices is pride, and as with many abusers, one of the root causes of his violent tendencies is his fear of being emasculated or humiliated. As such, his life is a constant parade of gestures designed to physically intimidate those around him. His retrograde view of women is that they are sexual objects to be used and discarded as he sees fit. He is incapable of connecting with a woman on an emotional or intellectual level, giving him no sense of empathy towards them. Blanche substitutes for the absent Stella as the outlet for Stanley's aggression and desire when she is in the hospital giving birth. Blanche becomes the surrogate victim for his wife, whose historical wealth has always caused him jealousy and fear, the two most common traits of the domestic abuser. Blanche represents all that Stanley resents in life, those who are socially superior to him and threaten his domestic dominance. Blanche's constant remarks about his coarseness and hints at his lack of intelligence have created the desire within him to humiliate and demean her. He wishes quite simply to degrade her and remind her that despite her superior family, he is in control. He acknowledges that this assault has been foreshadowed from the beginning of the play. Blanche's complete separation of reality has been hinted at throughout, however it is nonetheless shocking when it arrives. The delusions which provided her comfort away from a harsh and cruel world are what she retreats into entirely, becoming convinced that a former beau, Shep Huntley, is coming to take her away from this life. Stella, though, is racked with guilt for the decision to have her sister incarcerated in a mental asylum. In siding with her husband, whom she believes, she negates Blanche's version of the events at the end of scene 10, and in doing so severs the last tie Blanche has to her sanity. Stella admits her choice is a pragmatic one for the sake of both her and her newborn infant's life. However, it sticks hard with her as it clearly consigns Blanche to a much worse fate. Blanche's exit from the play, accompanied by an asylum doctor, epitomises her total dislocation from reality and confirms that the America she inhabits will no longer accept her vision of life. The final plea for kindness is a stark juxtaposition with the cruelty that she has been subject to from all corners of her life. The metaphorical blindness illustrates her inability to accept the hostility of the world and therefore ultimately explains her failure to exist in it. I hope you found this video on Streetcar Named Desire and Blanche DuBois helpful. Please like and subscribe. Good luck with your exams and revision, and take a good Christmas break. Goodbye.